So I think it's safe to say that LG phones are getting a lot better, and it's not just the usual spec bumps we get with other phones. With the G6, for example, LG took a pretty big step forward from the G5, making a phone that we knew would be a force to be reckoned with. Regardless of the fact that LG phones often get overshadowed by the likes of Samsung and others, LG continues to impress, especially with their latest offering, the V30. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. The LG V30 is a very nice phone. It's going to be underrated, and it's got a lot going for it. It's got the latest Snapdragon 835 processor, Adreno 540 GPU, 4GB of RAM, and a 3300 mAh battery, all wrapped up in a rather light, slim yet premium feeling glass and metal body, which by the way looks absolutely gorgeous, especially in this blue color. I love it. And it's also very comfortable to hold thanks to its slightly rounded edges. Up front, it's got a large 6-inch QHD Plus POLED display, which is something that I've been wanting to see in an LG flagship for some time now, so glad it's finally here. It is also HDR10 enabled. Around back, it's got the familiar dual camera setup right above the power button / fingerprint reader. It's got expandable storage, wireless charging, it's IP68 certified, and yes, it has a headphone jack. So really, the V30 has quite the impressive resume. I mean, what else could you possibly want? Well, this is the perfect moment to mention what a lot of phones don't have, and that's the 32-bit quad DAC included in this phone. This is something that is sure to please audiophiles with its superior wired audio performance. However, if wired audio just isn't your thing anymore, you may want to check out the Newforce BE2 from Optima, who were awesome enough to sponsor this video. First off, these sound very good, but not only that, they're built to last with polycarbonate and a cable that's been reinforced with Kevlar. They're perfect for everyday use and especially workouts, as they are IPX5 certified, so sweat won't be an issue. They boast up to 10 hours of continuous listening time. They look very slick. The tips are magnetic. They produce very solid sound quality that is sure to give much more expensive earbuds a run for their money, and the best part is that they're only 50 bucks. And they're so good that some of us over here at Android Police are calling these the best Bluetooth earbuds in this price range. Link in the description. So on paper, the V30 is impressive, and I'm happy to report that everyday usage is impressive as well. In terms of fluidity, the phone is straight butter. It is very smooth. And although the phone has just 4GB of RAM management has been just fine in my use anyway. Battery life is solid as well. I can get through a full day's use on a single charge, no problem, and I get more screen on time than I did with the G6. While LG's UX skin on top of Android is on the heavier side of things, it doesn't bog the system down, and it does have a nice set of features, some of which we have seen before. Things like the always on display, which looks very nice thanks to that OLED panel. There's the floating bar feature, which is kind of a consolation prize for those that liked the secondary display before on previous phones. And it's got a decent sized handful of customization features. The fingerprint reader on the back is great thanks to its natural feeling placement. It's pretty accurate, and I don't find myself having to reposition my finger. I'd also like to point out that it's great as a button too. It's got a very solid, reassuring click, and it doesn't feel as cheap as the ones found on previous LG phones. So now you may be wondering, what makes this phone stand out? What separates it from the other flagships on the market? Well, for one thing, the cameras. Mainly this one right here. This is the wide angle lens, which is something that LG has been doing for a little while, and I'm so glad they're continuing on with this trend. While most manufacturers opt to go the telephoto portrait mode route, LG does something that you don't see too often, and in all honesty, this is something that I personally prefer. It's an improved lens too, with an f1.9 aperture for better low light results, and there's less distortion on the sides. Being able to capture wide shots like this is great, especially if you're taking things like group shots in small areas or perhaps landscape shots. It's awesome. And while we're talking about the camera, it'd be pretty silly of me to gloss over the fact that this camera app is pretty loaded. There are tons of shooting modes, which in reality are well thought out and work nicely. There's even a Cinelog video mode, which allows you to shoot video in a way that allows those that want to edit their videos later to get the colors looking the way they want them to. This is something that LG is very proud of, and I have to say, this is great to see in a smartphone, and it really brings smartphone videography to another level. And don't get me started on the manual modes. This is something that LG's been good at for a while. If you want to take full control of your pictures and videos, This is the way to go, and it continues to be my favorite manual mode experience on any smartphone out right now. Something else I did want to point out, going back to the Cine video mode, is something called point zoom. This allows for extra smooth zooming in on any area of your choosing. It works really well. But for those that don't care for a manual mode and rely on auto mode, you'll be pleased to hear that shots from the main camera come out looking very solid, especially outdoors and in well-lit areas. And low light performance isn't too shabby at all, thanks to this lens's f1.6 aperture, which by the way is the first camera in a smartphone with such a spec. There are some things left to be desired when compared to the competition out there as far as things like dynamic range goes, but really the main camera on the V30 is very solid indeed. Now the selfie camera is, well, it's a bit of a different story. Picture quality is just okay. Skin tones are meh. It isn't absolutely horrible, but it just doesn't keep up with the rest of the competition out there, and honestly, I am not a fan. But overall, the camera experience has been pleasant, and I think you guys would enjoy these cameras. So like I said before, the V30 has a lot going for it. The phone checks pretty much every box that a great modern day smartphone should be able to check. Sure, the selfie camera isn't that great, the bottom firing speaker is just alright. Some people have voiced their disappointment in the phone only having 4 GB of RAM as opposed to something like 6. The display may not be perfect, and it's definitely not up there with Samsung's displays just yet, but other than that, it does everything it's supposed to do, and it does them all well, with little to no compromises. Great hardware, nice screen, good battery life, buttery smooth performance, solid cameras, and a set of features that some flagships can't quite say they have. Headphone jack. The V30 may not be the absolute best in all of these categories, but what it offers is a complete package that I think a lot of buyers might just regret passing on. All in all, the V30 is a heavy hitter. It's not just about the S and Note 8, the iPhone, and even the Pixel 2. The V30 is a phone that needs to be included in the conversation of what the top smartphones out there are. Some will call it the best phone of 2017. Some will call it the most underrated smartphone of 2017. But regardless of its title, it's got a lot to offer, and it definitely deserves your consideration. So what do you guys think of the LG V30? Will you be passing on it, or will you be picking one up? Let us know by dropping your comments down below. As always, we love to hear your feedback. But that does it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to hit that like button. Subscribe to the Android Police channel if you haven't already. That does it for me. I'll talk to you guys later, and thank you so much for watching.